What's in a name? Or what's in a weed? Message from the seventh Sunday after Pentecost. What's in a name? Weed. Being honest, I've never been so much of a green thumb. I've had some successes in growing things, but my failures far outweigh my successes in this pastime. What I do know is that there are no such things as weeds. Don't get me wrong, I have weeds. I have a lot of them, in fact. But what I do know is that weeds are very similar to plants. In fact, they are one and the same. The distinction between the two is simply the desire and the level of being wanted. Growing some peppers and have dandelions growing in your pepper garden? Dandelions are weeds. Growing dandelions for salads and other edible purposes and have roses growing in your dandelion patch? Well, roses are weeds. What's in a name? What's in a weed? In this week's gospel, we are given the parable of weeds among the wheat. I've got wheat behind me here. We also get Jesus' explanation of the parable. The not-so-green thumb in me says, well, we have what we need. Sow good seeds and tend to the fruit, because one day a harvest will come around, and being gathered among the good will be much better than a furnace of fire. Check. Got that. My gut says these dandelion weeds have a purpose. My life is like the reality of my garden at home. There are some successes. My jalapenos are growing. I have a beautiful, loving wife and children. There are also some failures. The crabgrass, the slugs, my constant desire to control all of the things around me despite knowing that I cannot control it all. See, the garden of life is a collection of good and bad, successes and failures, opportunities and hurdles. Good and evil exists. The seeds of good and evil have been sown. We're all gardeners in our own kingdoms of heaven, in our own gardens and those adjacent to our neighbor. We nurture the seeds of good and evil in our lives, affecting ourselves and our neighbors around us, because a slight wind can carry the seeds of our shortcomings onto the harvests of our neighbors unknowingly. Life isn't just roses and peppers. The weeds exist. We water them, sometimes unknowingly, sometimes knowingly. A harvest is coming, though. One day, the harvest of all that is good and bad will come around, and the fruits of both will be collected and stored accordingly. So what are we going to make of this life? We have the choice to let the weeds grow together with our good harvest, being careful not to uproot the good in our lives. We have the choice to identify all the places in our lives where we are short from the fruitful abundance of God's good and use them as a place to find new growth, to turn the unbountiful into a testimony of the abundance of God's grace and mercy. So, what's in a name? Weed. I like to think more than a furnace of fire with weeping and gnashing of, well, anything. I have hope that there is a potential. We cannot turn our backs to the reality that the weeds exist. But Jesus is calling us to use the presence of the weeds as a place of growth to yield a better fruit, to nurture the sweet opportunities while plowing through the hurdles of life's thorns and briars. So what's in your name, weed? I like to think there's potential. Peace.